The excitement is building. Football is back, baby, and so are the silver and black. This time we're talking preseason game 1, Tom Brady, and so much more. Let's do this thing. Sin City Beat starts right now.
From Las Vegas, this is Sin City Beat.
Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us on Sin City Beat. I'm your host, Mike Davis. Sin City Beat is the show that dissects the Vegas sports world through the eyes of the reporters and storytellers leading the charge. Joining the action on the panel today, we have Case Kiefer, sports editor of the Las Vegas Sun, Harry Ruiz, Spanish play-by-play announcer for the Raiders, and a first-timer is joining us, Levi Edwards, digital reporter with the Raiders. Thanks so much for being here, guys. So the Raiders are set for their first preseason game this coming Thursday versus the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, it will be sort of a homecoming of sorts for new head coach Pete Carroll and quarterback Geno Smith, but there's more than just a reunion going down. Preseason football is just preseason football. We all know that, but I want to know what the panel is going to be watching for in preseason game 1. So, Case Kiefer, what is piquing your interest in this first preseason game?
It's probably the easy answer, but always first preseason game. I want to see the rookies in a game situation, and especially this year, it seems like, they have a huge rookie class, drafted 11 guys, always with a new coaching staff coming in. You want to put your guys in a position to succeed. It seems like a lot of these guys could have starting roles from day one. I know Ashton Genty's the headliner, but I feel like in a lot of ways, he hasn't even been as exciting as like a Dante Thornton, for example, Darian Porter, if he's going to start at cornerback. You're going to see a lot of those guys out there playing a lot, and I want to see how they hold up in an actual NFL game situation.
Yeah, Levi, there's a lot of talk about Thornton, a lot of different stuff. You were thinking all camp it was going to be about Genty, but it seems like it's a lot of the supporting cast is getting a lot of noise.
Well, that's great news for John Spytek. It means that you did a hell of a job, with your draft class, because you have 5 guys. Case mentioned all of them. You have 5 guys that could potentially be starters going into week 1 if you count Tani Malott, who's been getting some special teams reps at kick and punt return. So that's a really great draft class to be able to get all of those guys like an Ashton or Jack Besh at slot, Dante Thornton, who's so fast sometimes he can't even stay in the camera frame. You have all these guys who are really stepping up, and Darian Porter, he's just as fast as Dante, so on the other side of the ball. So I'm really excited to see these young guys step up and really earn their opportunity to get on this field.
Yeah, that's been the narrative all time long with Pete Carroll being here. It's about competition and all that stuff. That's the theme we've been hearing. Harry, you always make the broadcast exciting. What are you looking for in this broadcast preseason game 1?
So as somebody that gets to call the games, I want to see how many starters we get to see in action, because every coach has a different philosophy. Some of them throw them out there for a quarter, for a half. Some of them don't throw them out there at all. So I have a feeling with Geno Smith having a past in Seattle, there might be a chance he gets a series or 2. It's big to get that confidence too with the centers. We've been seeing rotation in that position over the last week in training camp. Who's going to be there giving the ball to Geno Smith or Aiden O'Connell or Cam Miller? That's going to be big too.
Okay, now preseason football. So we think Geno is going to play. Is that what we think right now?
I think they might give him a series. We haven't gotten any unless Levi has news that we don't. Pete Carroll's not said definitively. But going to Seattle, I think Pete will want to play his guys. I think we see Geno Smith out there if I had to guess.
Is there anything extra? The reunion concept of this, Levi, with Carroll, his history with Seattle. Is there any juice there that just makes this more exciting than the average preseason game?
I think there is some juice, not just because of Pete Carroll, but you also have to add in another couple of factors, which is Jamal Adams and Geno Smith. Those are another 2 guys that played in Seattle. Those are another 2 guys that were with Pete Carroll. And so not only is Pete Carroll going back somewhere that he was very familiar with, but Geno going back somewhere where his career was literally resurrected, where a place where he has still a lot of fans. The 12 is still fully behind Geno Smith, loved his time there, did not have a losing season in Seattle as their starter. So even though it's a preseason game and, it won't count, there's definitely going to be a lot of people in the stands that are going to be excited to see their guys back.
Okay, and last thing here, Harry, I got to talk about my guy Ashton. I love talking about Ashton. This is my dude, okay? How many series do you think this guy's going to get in a game like this? What do you think? And because I'm curious to see if this is really going to be the Ashton Genty show or if Mostert's going to get a lot more action in the backfield and what's going to happen in preseason game
That's a
one?
very interesting question because it's football, man. Anything can happen,
Yeah.
especially with contact. Go back to Saturday over at Allegiant Stadium, a mock game, and you see Lonnie Johnson Jr. having an injury on a fluke play where he just gets rolled up on, and you don't want to see that situation happening with a star player that you have so much banked on, like Ashton Genty. Personally, I think if he gets one series or two tops, that would be it. Of course, you want to get him comfortable, used to the contact. He's not going to be getting tackled like that by his teammates at practice or at a mock game. The players from the other team, they're trying to get paid. They're trying to stay in the league. So if they have a chance at knocking or tackling down Ashton Genty, they're going to take it, and you just got to be careful, man.
Yeah, hey, listen, I wouldn't want to go after that guy. Okay, guys, next we're talking about the GOAT, Tom Brady. He was seen at practice and at the mock game this weekend. What's been his impact with the team so far? We're breaking it down after these words.
You're watching Sin City Beat.
Welcome back to Sin City Beat. So Tom Brady, a.k.a. the GOAT, 23 seasons in the NFL, 7 Super Bowl rings, broadcaster with Fox Sports, and of course a minority owner with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, he was present at training camp at the mock game last week. So Levi Edwards, I'm going to you first on this. What have you seen just around the team from Brady being present, being around? Has that had a big impact so far, and what do you think that's going to look like long term?
Long term, I think obviously when you have a guy who has the winning acumen that he has 7 Super Bowl titles, MVPs, he's done it all in the league, and obviously the Raiders have had the limited success that they've had in the last 20 years. So with that being said, why not bring in someone that knows as much about the game as he does, that knows much about winning as he does, and you add it with Pete Carroll, a guy who is a winner himself. So really, it's still kind of yet to be determined how much of a factor he does play in making decisions, but you have to assume that's going to be a pretty big role in what he does. And even Friday at practice, he was there, and you could just tell the vibe was different. Everyone was, a little more heightened up, a little bit more alert, just kind of happy to be around him and kind of talk to him. And you can see guys like Dante Thornton picking his brain and Max Crosby picking his brain, guys kind of on the sideline going up and talking to him. And so when you have a guy like that at your disposal that you have around, it's a big deal.
It looks good just seeing him in the silver and black with the Raiders logo, all that stuff. Have you seen him communicate a lot with Pete Carroll being there too?
Yeah, I've seen him communicate a lot with Pete Carroll. I've seen him communicate a lot with John Spytek because obviously they were teammates at Michigan. So they have that history, not only from Michigan, but also that history of winning a Super Bowl together with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Spytek was the assistant GM. So definitely have seen them kind of communicating a lot since he's been in the building. He communicated with him a lot on Saturday at the mock game as well that he was also in attendance for. So I think that it is a very good relationship that they have. I think that everything is going to continue to grow as they continue to build a relationship together with, Pete, obviously, John already having one. So I think that things are definitely going the right direction.
It's interesting, Case, because, we've been present for, these teams with Josh McDaniels, with Antonio Pierce. There's been an issue of leadership and culture for a long time with this team in recent memory. I feel like we overlook, although we talk a lot about Brady, we overlook just the impact of having a guy like that, just like Levi's saying, with being alert. I mean, when the GOAT is present, and that's got to make a difference. What's your take on this and what you have seen?
Yeah, I think it can only be a positive having Tom Brady involved. And look, Mark Davis, when we get to talk to him, he's made it no secret that how big this is and how much he wanted Tom Brady in place because he wants to rely on more football people. He wants to do things differently if we've seen the lack of success over the last 20 years with this franchise. I do think, however, I kind of get that it's easy to overlook because I think Tom Brady in a lot of ways is going to lengths to not make it look like he's meddling too much or in too many things. And I do think he's not running the day-to-day operations or anything, but he's definitely involved. But, he's also got his broadcasting gig that he kind of has to juggle. So I think there's a reason why you've only seen him out at 2 practices so far, why he's kind of tried to keep his distance. But Tom Brady doesn't put his name on losers. He does not want to lose games, so I think he is making some decisions.
Yeah, Harry, what have you seen, and how exciting is this? I mean, have you guys have met him, Levi and Harry, at all? No.
I actually have met him. The first time he came into the building, we met, and it's actually a funny connection that we have because my mom's family is from Massachusetts.
Oh.
So my mom's side, they grew up in Dorchester, and then my grandparents lived in Brockton until they passed away. So I talked to him about Massachusetts, talked to him about Brockton, which is hilarious because his sister actually now lives in the town that my mom grew up in.
Oh,
up there.
interesting.
So we talked a little bit about that and just the Patriots and stuff like that.
And what was your read on him? Just getting that personal contact. What was that like?
In a weird way, just kind of like chill guy, because everything that we've seen about Tom Brady, he's so intense and he's always on 10 all the time. So the limited interaction I had with him, he was a pretty chill guy, just trying to like learn the lay of the land that he's now inherited. So really good conversation. Everything went well. So that was my one time I've talked to him, but I thought that was a pretty cool connection that we had.
Man, let's see. This is why we got the GOAT here ourselves in Levi Everett. His Twitter cover photo's got you and Mike Tyson. You got to have you and Brady on that cover photo, man.
My mom has that picture framed in her house, by the way.
Okay, good. Okay, a true Massachusetts person there, knowing what to do with that picture. So, Harry, what about you? Have you had personal contact, and what's your take on all this?
So, funny enough, the closest I've been to Brady was when Josh McDaniels was the coach of the Raiders. I was doing a setup for a one-on-one interview with a Raiders player, and I was walking towards the locker room, and like 5 feet away from me, here come Tom Brady and Josh McDaniels walking that way. I was like, holy crap, I got better start running because then they're going to run over me. But that was like, even me, I'm a Raider fan, and from our time and from everything we saw from Brady, the Tuck rule, the Patriots' success, we don't like the Patriots, we don't like Tom Brady, but you see that guy right there, he has that aura, man, that where it's like, he's special. You call him the GOAT, and me as a Raider fan, it has been so hard for so many years to be like, yeah, he's the GOAT because of his Patriot past, but it's the reality. You win that many Super Bowls, you're that successful, not with one franchise, but with two, even though in the second one you were there for a limited amount of time. And it's like, dude, that's the kind of success you want the Raiders to have. And the way that Levi, we see Tom Brady in person, that's the same way a lot of these players now on the team look at Tom Brady, where it's like they were growing up watching him on TV.
It's true.
And now can you imagine he walks into the locker room or sees him on the field, and it's like, that's the guy that I wanted to be growing up.
And it's better because it's not such a distant memory. It's not like Joe Montana walks into the locker room or Marino and it's like, we grew up watching. No, they played against this guy. It's not too far into the past. So I do think, Levi, like you said, though, some of that video we saw, him and Spy Tech and that connection, the way they talk, there's a lot of synergy in that video that I'm witnessing. So I'd like to see that. Now, listen, you know what? Everybody says when it comes to the O-line. The O-line never gets any love. Well, not on Sin City Beat. Coming up, we're talking all about Colton Miller and the new extension he signed. All right, 3 years, $66 million with $42.5 million guaranteed. That's the extension starting left tackle Colton Miller signed last week. Now, Miller is the longest tenured Raiders player and was entering the final year of his contract. So, Harry Ruiz, do you like this deal, number one? And what is getting, your starting left tackle locked up extension-wise mean for this O-line moving forward?
You protect Geno Smith's blind side. Last year, it was a rough start for him, but let's remember he wasn't available OTAs, most of preseason action. I mean, you get him towards the end, but he wasn't the Colton Miller that we were used to in the first 4 or 5 games. So once he got hot, he was that guy that could protect the quarterback like we know he can. He's the most veteran guy, like you said, in that offensive line, the experience he brings, the quality of play that he brings. If you have a quality left tackle, you pay him, you keep him, you don't find a way to get experiments with a rookie. No, you get the guy, and they rewarded him like one of the best left tackles you got in the league, and good for him.
Okay, now I want to go to you, Levi, about the macro view of this line, but first, Case, in your estimation, Colton Miller, he doesn't get the same level of talk as a Penei Sewell, a Lane Johnson, Tristan Wirfs, any of that kind of stuff. But where do you kind of rank him in your own O-line left tackle rundown?
Yeah, well, I'd say he's not in that first tier, and that's not a slight to him. I mean, those guys are some of the highest paid players in the league, absolute top level. I will say I don't think he's ever been to a Pro Bowl, and that is an oversight. He's had seasons where he should have been a Pro Bowler. I agree with a lot of what Harry said. You have an upper half left tackle, which I think he is. You got to pay him. You got to keep him. The one reason why I have a little bit of hesitation is I do think he's not coming off his best year. I think it was a little bit of a down year last year. Now we have the shoulder injury, missing all training camp. That's a big thing. But also aging curve. There is a possibility he's on the downside. I'm not saying he is. I just think this is really kind of a prove it year. We're going to see how good this deal looks after these games. He's lived up to it in the past. Can he kind of get his career back on track? Where I think he had a little bit of a dip last year.
Yeah, second most important position in all of football, I would say. Levi, from let's take a macro view at this line, because I think there's a lot of chatter from what I've been reading and looking into with Meredith and Jackson Powers-Johnson, and a lot of shifting going on with this line. What would you say this line's going to look like going into the season? Do you like how this line is shaping up, and do you think it's going to be a big improvement upon last year? And give us the rundown from left tackle to right tackle, what you think the line's ultimately going to be.
Well, I'm really intrigued by how the line is looking, and coming into camp, the last thing I would have expected for there to be is a competition on the offensive line, this huge chatter amongst this competition that's taking place. I think a lot of people just assumed that Jackson Powers-Johnson was going to be the starting center, and we were going to go from there. But I will say, you asked me to go from left to right. So obviously Colton Miller, if you have a guy on the blind side, you have a guy at quarterback, you're going to get paid. They're not going to let you go in free agency. That's just how it is. Yeah. Colton Miller, he's the longest tenured player on the team, and so he has to stay. Like, they were going to keep him. Dylan Parham, he's been a guy, third-round pick a few years ago. He's been really solid, steady, been able to stay healthy, really nasty physical style of play. I like him as well. You get to that center position, and so center, right guard is really a four-player competition right now between Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Alex Kappa, and even Thayer Munford, who technically is a swing tackle, but they have him playing at guard a little bit right now. Okay. And as for Jordan Meredith, I really like Jordan. He had a great season last year. I would have never expected for him to be getting starting reps at center, but I personally thought when we signed Alex Kappa, I still thought, hey, Jordan Meredith needs a shot at right guard. Really? And I thought even with that signing, people just assumed that Kappa had that locked up. But based off of what I saw, especially going in later into the season with injuries and the line kind of, flipping around, Jordan played really well. And people don't really look at it or notice that, but I think he deserves just as much of a shot at either that center spot or that right guard spot as anybody on the team.
So you think it will be a combination of Jackson Powers-Johnson and Meredith, whether it's guard or center, whoever's playing?
I definitely think that's going to be the direction, but I can't tell you who's going to be where. But I think those two right now are going to be the front runners for one of those two spots. And DJ Glaze at right tackle, who
showed a lot of promise last year.
Showed a lot of promise, great size, really composed. I really believe that he has a lot of potential. And I'm also biased. I grew up in Charlotte. He's a Charlotte guy.
Gotcha.
So.
Case, before we go to the break, you're nodding a lot. You like what Levi's saying about Meredith. What do you like about this?
I could not agree more. I've been beating this drum. Alex Kappa seems like a great guy.
He was a name recognition guy.
Yeah, he should not be starting on this team, in my opinion, over Jordan Meredith and Jackson Powers-Johnson. Meredith was great down the stretch last year. I don't know which position you put him in. I think, this isn't like reporting. It's just kind of my sense. I think Jackson Powers-Johnson really wants to play center, and the Raiders want him to play guard. If I'm Jackson Powers-Johnson, I'm going to guard. You see the contracts they're handing out at that position now. So if I had to guess, I think it's Meredith center and Powers-Johnson guard. I don't think it really matters. I think you want your best five, and I do not think Alex Kappa is one of their best five.
It's interesting because Jackson Powers-Johnson, second-round pick from Telesco, from Telesco with the Brock Bowers year, comes out of Oregon, playing center at Oregon, but they shifted him to guard during his rookie season. He wants the opportunity to play center. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all breaks down. But it seems like we have a lot of fans of Meredith here on the panel from Sin City Beat. Guys, there's a lot of swirling rumors going around as Terry McLaurin and Micah Parsons seem to be unhappy with their respective teams. Could the Raiders be potential trade partners? Would our panel pull the trigger on a deal? That's next. All right, welcome back to Sin City Beat. So 2 game changers are upset with their current contract status. Wide receiver Scary Terry McLaurin is unhappy with the Commanders, seeking a trade. And edge rusher Micah Parsons took to social media to show his displeasure with the Cowboys as he wants out of Dallas. So these are 2 guys thinking and knowing they deserve big contracts. Is there any chance the Raiders enter the mix for these trade talks? Case, would you pull the trigger and trade for either of these guys?
I'm usually always against giving up your future assets for big-time trades. There is a very small list in the NFL of guys I would greenlight it for. I will say Micah Parsons is one of them. If you call up the Cowboys and say you have our next 2 first-round picks and a pick of the litter, one of our promising young guys, maybe like a Michael Mayer, as good as he's looked in training camp, if you could get that done for Micah Parsons, you do it every time.
Dude, Micah and Max together rushing, I mean, that would be one of the most beautiful things that would be like Jennifer Aniston prime time in her prime on Friends. That would be gorgeous to watch. What do you think? Would you pull the trigger?
It would be incredible. The thing is, it's not only the picks that you're going to send and the assets you're going to send. It's also the money you have to pay the player, the cap space that has to go to that player, that it makes me a little bit hesitant, especially after what we've seen the Raiders do in the draft the last 2 years with the first round. You get an all-pro tight end in Brock Bowers as a rookie. You get a running back like Ashton Genty, which we hope that the Raiders aren't picking top 16 the next year. That means they're having success. But at the same time, I'm like, I like that they're starting to get smart people making decisions with first-round picks.
100%. AFC West, though, you got Herbert, you got Mahomes. You want to get after the quarterback. Bo Nix, what Sean Payton's doing, I don't know. That's how I feel. What's your take on this? How much of this is actually legit and how much of this is just people who live in their mom's basement, tweeting stuff?
I honestly think it's a little bit of both because I really do think that John Spytek, as we saw this year in the draft with 11 draft picks, taking 7 to make it into 11, plus what he did with Tampa, he likes his draft capital, and he's not going to just let his draft capital go, even if it is Micah Parsons. But at the same time, it is Micah Parsons. He's one of the top defenders in the entire league, one of the best pass rushers in the league. Another thing to take notice of is him and Max Crosby are really good friends. They've made appearances on each other's podcasts. They're really tight. So that could be a type of situation where Max is going up to Spytek or going up to, Big Boss MD and saying, hey, man, this is my guy. He's in a little bit of a situation if you want to bring him over here.
Yeah.
I could totally see that being a thing. On top of the fact that Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator, he loves versatility in all of his players, and he likes to do a lot of different schemes.
Yeah.
But Micah Parsons, you can have him line up pretty much anywhere in the front seven as
and
an
he's
off-ball
relentless.
linebacker or whatever.
He's relentless like Mad Max. So listen, sentiment seems like we're in on Parsons, maybe not on Scary Terry McLaurin. I want to thank my great panel, Levi Edwards, Case Kiefer, Harry Ruiz. Listen, guys, preseason game 1 versus the Seattle Seahawks. You can watch it here on Fox 5 this Thursday, 7 p.m. Look at that. Max Crosby, the face of the franchise. We got Ashton Genty now. We got Pete Carroll. We got Geno Smith. Imagine if you got Micah Parsons in that graphic as well. That would look very pretty. It's kind of like Jennifer Aniston. Same, that was my goat. Tom Brady and Jennifer Aniston. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on Sin City Beat.